Hello, good afternoon. I'm Linnea Johnston, the Word Wizard, and it is just a thrill to be back with you again for our third Linkability webinar this afternoon. Now, I'm really excited to be talking to you today about headlines. And the reason is that LinkedIn has recently made it more possible and more flexible and a greater idea to be able to have longer headlines. Before, there were 120 characters available for your LinkedIn profile headline. Now it is 220. That means there's a lot more space to be able to talk about what you do and how you do it and the results that people are going to get from that. So today we are talking about headlines. Now, thank you for coming on to the webinar today. I so appreciate you spending your time to listen to this. The replay will be sent to you as soon as it's available from the email address or to the email address that you used to register for the event. So that should be with you inside around 24 hours. Now then, shall we talk about headlines? I think so. Let's have a quick look at what we're going to be talking about today. And first of all, I'm just going to show you what it is that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about, I'm just trying to find out here, we're going to be covering why headlines are important first of all, and why you're spending your time here today listening to me talk about them. Well, your headline follows you around LinkedIn. Wherever you are on the platform, you'll find your headline. Now, not all of your headline, of course, only some of it. About the first 40 or so characters will be visible absolutely everywhere. But of course, your entire headline will be visible on your profile. So what we want to do is to be able to look at the reasons why we should be making sure our profile our profile headline is as good as we can make it. So it follows you around. It's going to be showing when you people look at your recommendations, when they look at your content, and when you engage on other people's posts and content too. Just about everywhere that your profile photo appears, so will your headline. So that's the reason why we really want to have our headlines top-notch. I've come up with a couple of formulas that I will go through with you, and then we're going to have a look at 17 ideas that you can use on your profile headlines, which will just stop people in their tracks. All right, so I've already just mentioned that your headline follows you around LinkedIn, and I think that that's probably the key reason why a good headline is essential. But it's also important to have a number of keywords in your profile headline, because people who search for your industry or your job title or the kind of service that you offer will need to be able to see those keywords from the headline. So LinkedIn search looks at headlines, picks up those terms, and then puts people into search. So if you want to be found on LinkedIn, keywords are really quite important. And the third reason is because they grab attention. They stop people from just wandering off. They'll have a good look at your profile. They'll stop and they will pay attention. I'd like to share a couple of formula with you. The first is one from John Esperian. And this is the 3 I's. Now, formula are important because they give structure to your headline. And if you have got each of the elements in the formula in your headline, then you will achieve what you need to from your headline. So John Esperian, who's from the UK, his 3 I headline looks like this. Relentlessly helpful technical copywriting for B2B websites. So he's broken it down into 3 areas that I'll just show you here. He's got the interesting piece first, in which he says the interesting piece is relentlessly helpful technical copywriting. Informative for B2B websites, LinkedIn nerd, author of Content DNA, and that's a great book, by the way. And intriguing, not a douche canoe. Now, that's not a phrase that's common in New Zealand and Australia, but clearly a bit more well known in the UK. I'm guessing that what it means is that he's a decent bloke. So then the second formula is who you are, what you do, who for, and the benefits or the results. And I'm going to show you my profile headline because that's one that I can actually change to show you these things. So first of all, who I am. I'm the word wizard. It's how I'm commonly known. What I do, I help people reach their goals. How do I do it? Through updates, profile updates, coaching, training, and marketing. And the results, I haven't actually, it's the one thing that my headline doesn't say, does it? So I'm helping people who I am, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and the results. So the results aren't there in my own headline, which is something that I think I need to fix. But I also mentioned two keywords, content and copywriter. So if anybody's searching for a content writer or a copywriter or LinkedIn, anybody about LinkedIn, my headline should pop up. Here's another one that is the same kind of formula. So then it doesn't say who he is. It says what he does. He helps revamp businesses. It says who he works for. So that's SME directors. That's his target market. And how he does that through a 3-stage process, the survive, revive, and thrive. And I do like that phrase. I think that's fantastic. So that also has that whole formula of who you are, what you do, how you do it, and the results. And I think that that's a really good example of that. Now, the very common formats that you see for LinkedIn profile headlines are these two. And this is where you've got the straightforward / it's a symbol that's actually on your, or a key on your keyboard, and the up and down vertical line, and that's also on your keyboard. And those are very simple, they're very easy. You don't have to go off the program, off LinkedIn, off the platform to be able to use those. You can just put them in as you're writing your headline. Text formatting is something that I am using a lot more all over LinkedIn now that I'm getting used to it. And I really like this example because it stands out brilliantly. The Curious Human has been put through an external platform, probably Unicode, which I talk about, by the way, in my last webinar, if you're looking to find out a bit more information about that. You copy the text you want to highlight or to put into a different format into Unicode, copy and paste it back into, in the new format, back into your headline, just like this. And I really do think that that stands out really quite nicely. You can bold text, you can underline, no, not underline, you can italicize it, and you can put it into different fonts, just like this one here, which I think looks great. Very simple, very straightforward, easy to understand. Now, emojis are very common in headlines. You'll have seen them a lot. And there's two ways to use emojis, I think, really well. The first is this one, which is to have a different emoji throughout. So the same one is not used twice. So I like that. I think it's quite interesting and it's a wee bit different. And each of those emojis relates in some way to the text that surrounds it. And this is the second method where you have got the emoji, same emoji used more than once. It's repeated, in this case 4 times. Now, I like this one. I think this one looks really, really good. I like the colors, I like the simplicity of it, and I like the way that it sits so that they start, the first and the third start right underneath each other quite nicely. I think that works really nicely. It's a really good way to be able to use emojis in the repetition way. Now, this is a different kind of headline that is worked only on the words. So it doesn't rely on anything else. It's only got the text. And these two, I think, are really good examples of how this is done exceptionally well. So in the top example, it's really simple. So the person is a marketer. Well, that's very clear. She's saying, or he is saying, that they are not a young person, but they're very enthusiastic. And I like that. It's very simple and a very clear message expressed in a really nice way. Now, the bottom one really stopped me in my tracks when I was doing some work the other day, and I came across it accidentally. And this belongs to a forensic scientist. And I particularly liked it because show me the evidence is a really good phrase. It's something we all understand. And for somebody who works in the forensic science area, I think this is an excellent headline. There's no misunderstanding what the person does. Now, having a call to action on a lot of marketing material is very common indeed, but it's a little more unusual to see it sitting on a LinkedIn profile, a headline. But why not? Now we've got the space for it. I see absolutely no reason why they can't be used. So that we'll see some more examples later, but this one is a very simple and direct let's talk. Now, some people will use as their call to action a suggestion that you email them or that you visit their website perhaps. But this person, who has really been very clear in his headline or her headline about what it is that they do, is suggesting action. And straight away, I like that. Let's talk, let's do it now. It really comes across well, I think. So you know what kind of a person you're going to be dealing with when you do pick up the phone. Humour. Now, you don't see humour much on LinkedIn. In fact, I was going to do a webinar about humour and then realised I didn't have enough content. So I was very pleased to come across this in a headline. And this is obviously from an accountant. And it is saying, the message that it's getting across, I really like. What it's saying is that I'm an interesting personality. I'm perhaps not the usual kind of accountant. So if you come to me, then I'm going to be a bit different from what you expect. And so that is their point of difference. And I really like that. I thought that that was really fun, really simple message, and they got that across really well. Now, the testimonial headline is something that I've not seen a lot of, and I don't know why, because I think it's an excellent idea. Now, this is not a very good example, I confess, but I like the idea of a testimonial headline. Now, from my copywriting experience, I always make certain that the person who has written the testimonial, their name is there. I always ask for permission to be able to do that. And I think that's important because that gives it credibility. But the idea of a testimonial, of course, is it's not you saying how fantastic you are, it's somebody else. It's one step removed. And so that works, I think, exceedingly well. Now, when you're putting in or choosing a testimonial, the best idea is to make certain that you have something that is different from other people and it stands out. So in this case, all the person is saying is that they have been efficient and that they've got years of experience. Now, that is not enough, I don't think, to stand out. It needs to have more than that in it. But the idea of a testimonial in a headline, I absolutely love. And here's another format that I really like and I'd like to see happening a lot more, although again, I don't think this is a particularly good example, because I think that the Q&A, asking a question and then answering it, is a really good way to get your message across to people who stop by your profile and want to know what it is that you do and whether you can help them. So in this case, the question is, are you looking to grow your people, want to reach them, want to help them reach their potential? Now that's the question, and that's where there should be a full stop or a question mark. So it's very clear that that's what the question is. And then there should be the answer. Now it's a general answer first. You need to develop them, challenge and support them and upskill them. I really like that. I think that's really clear. And then how I can personally help you with fully customized bespoke learning solutions. So that's a 3-part headline, and I think that works really well. As I say, I think the question needs to be more clearly stated in this particular example, but it's a great formula. Now, in some cases, you'll see phone numbers on people's profile headlines, which I find very interesting. Now, I don't think it necessarily works for all people or all businesses. It's better for some rather than others. And this is where you want to get people to actually pick up the phone rather than visit your website or potentially send you a direct message on LinkedIn. So in a way, it's a call to action, but it's a very specific one. The last one that said, let's talk, as you'll recall, didn't say how you should get in touch with the person. This one does, and by picking up the phone. Now, a couple of things I like about this. One is that the phone icon is there, so you can easily see that that's what it means. And the second is that the phone number is broken up into chunks. Now, I think it's a lot harder to dial a phone number when it's all one long number. If you can break it up into pieces like this, it's very much easier for people to follow. So putting a phone number on a profile headline is a really good idea if that's how you want people to communicate with you and to contact you. Now, this one really appealed, this headline, because of its uniqueness. Now, I liked it for several reasons. One is because I'd never heard of the phrase bumblebee pollinating businesses before. And I like that. I think that that's really a nice way to describe what you do. And I like the teaching people how to catch fish for life, because that, of course, is a variation on the saying that about teaching people to fish, and they'll be fed for a lifetime, as opposed to just giving them fish that will feed them for a day. So I do like that. I like the uniqueness of that. I like the fact that there are 3 points. I like the fact that there are 3 different emojis on here as well. So to me, that works really nicely. I'm really pleased to see something that's really quite different and that stands out in that kind of a way. Now, not many people would think about including the news on their headlines, and this again is something that's specific to some kinds of businesses. And you can see at the end here, the piece of news is headlines can now have 220 characters. Now, it's clearly relevant to the person who has put this on their profile, but it's also something that is relevant to people who are looking at it because they're looking at a headline. And so I think there's a double win there. Now, it might pay to be careful about how you use this kind of a news angle, because you don't want people to think that you are taking advantage of a difficult situation, for example, and using something that really is not ethical, perhaps. So choose your news idea quite carefully. But I think this is a really super way to do it too. Community involvement. Now, a lot of people do something out there in the community, whether they're a volunteer like this person is, or they're on the board of a not-for-profit. I think that having that in your headline is an excellent idea. Now, this person is from the UK, and the NHS there has been much in the news, of course, recently. And so to say that you're a volunteer there is a really positive thing. And so I like this idea. So if you are doing anything with, in the way of actively supporting a not-for-profit or a charity of any kind, then I think that that might well be worth having in your headline, particularly if you've been doing it for a while. Hashtags are popping up in headlines as well, which is really interesting. So in this one, we've got LinkedIn Local and LinkedIn Live, both of which are becoming more popular on LinkedIn. Now, if you were to choose a hashtag that you are known by, or that has a lot of followers, then I think that might be useful to put that into a headline as well. And I think that that might work quite nicely. So hashtags are another thing that I think that we can all be thinking about. Repetition. Now, repetition works well in all kinds of copywriting, and it's great that there's enough space now on the LinkedIn headline to be able to use it there. And so the word fact, 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 3 times, and in uppercase letters, which is great, that stands out. 3 exclamation marks, they stand out, which is really good too. So I think that that works really quite nicely. I like that kind of repetition. Now, that's not the only kind of repetition. Of course, there are different kinds, and here's another example of repetition. 3 phrases starting with the letter E: energize, enhance, and earn. Now, I think that that works really well because there is that kind of a synergy. It sort of moves the headline forward, as do the arrows. I think the arrows work really nicely in there too, and they move somebody who's reading that through the headline quite nicely. So that one worked well for me too. Now, being in tune with the times, I think, is something that we could all be thinking about, but again, it's important to do it in an ethical way. We're talking a lot at the moment about how the planet is being affected by humankind over the time that we have graced the earth. And so to say that you are planet friendly, or that you are working in that area, and whether that's your business or an interest that you have, I think is really a good idea. It's perfectly acceptable. I think that it's important to be careful how you express that. And for instance, I would not recommend putting in religious or political affiliations into your LinkedIn headline. I think that that might cause people to be turned off. So best to try and keep things as open as possible. And if you're a greenie like me, then a profile like this would really appeal. Now, this person has put their location on the end of their LinkedIn headline. And I like this idea because if you're working across countries, then this is the only way you could really tell people right at the very front. Because if you are working, for example, like I do in New Zealand and Australia, I can't put that as my location on my profile, but I can put it in my headline. And so if you are working in more than one country, then that's a great idea, I think, to put it in there so that people can see where it is that you might happen to be working. So that's a really good idea too. And this is the final one of these, which I really have to say I really like. I only found this just the other day. And this has got a bit of everything in it. So you can see then that it has got 5 different emojis. It has got the vertical lines in it to break up the text. It has got 2 calls to action in the DM me, let's talk, and the follow me. So that's the calls to action. And it's got the hashtag at the end, Billy Samoa. So that you can see this is a really good example of putting together several different ideas from those that I have just shared with you. So what were they again? Well, this is them here. I put this slide in with just the title of each of those ideas, so that if you start to work on your own headline and go, what were those things she said again? I wish I could remember them all. Well, here they are for you. You can come back to the slide at any time and just check out what they were to see whether or not there's anything there that you think that you might be able to use. Now, can you use all 17 in your headline? Of course not. I don't think so. I would be very surprised if you were able to do all of that in one headline. But I'd be really pleased to see several of those. If you could get 5 of them into your headline, then I think that you would be doing extremely well. So I think that will give you a slide to come back to if you want to do some work on your own headline. Now, just before we pop over to the chat box to see if anyone has any questions, there are just a couple of things about how we can help you. So we do done for you profile updates We have a marketing program if you want to move on to the next step of working with LinkedIn. That's around connecting, posting, and engaging. We do direct marketing campaigns for people, personal coaching. This is largely around people who want to take that next step up with LinkedIn. And we do team and individual training for companies that want to start using the power of LinkedIn and their team members to be able to really bump up their presence on LinkedIn and their activity. Now, you may want to find us in a few different places. So, of course, there's our Word Wizard website. You can pop over to YouTube and look at this replay. That's where we're going to put this, as I mentioned. And if you are not already connected to me or following me on LinkedIn, then I invite you to do so. Now then, I think that that's just about it, except to tell you that we won't be doing another webinar in 3 weeks' time because I'm about to launch my book. And so from here, we are going to take a break from the webinars, and the next webinar will be around my book, Linkability, sometime in August. All right, so then now I wanted to just see whether there were any questions. And somebody did get in touch with me during the week and asked me about how they should write a headline if they were looking for a job. Now, sometimes people will say quite clearly and quite upfront, I'm looking for a job or open to opportunities, that kind of thing. And there are a couple of different ways of looking at this. One is that if you are looking for a job, saying that you are doing so is not the best look. Now, I'm not certain whether that still holds true in current times. I think it was true earlier, but now with so many people out of work, I think that it's perfectly acceptable to say that you are available to be working. But I think it's also important to not forget that you ought to explain why somebody should hire you. Why are you the right person to work for them? What can you bring to their business? And how can you improve it? So I think that saying that you're open to opportunities is okay, but I do think that it's important that you do it in a very careful way. Now, Ivy has sent a message here in the chat box saying that she found me through a post I put up earlier in the week that featured Kevin Costner. Clearly she's a fan too. And what's wrong about that, Ivy? I think everybody should be a Kevin Costner fan. But anyway, what I was talking about in that particular post was having dual careers. There are a lot of people who might have a main job and a side hustle, or they might be a consultant and they are working in governance and they want to be able to show those on LinkedIn. So that was what I was talking about in that post. So I'm glad you saw that, Ivy, and that you managed to find that. So I want to just finish by saying thank you for joining us today. If you have any queries about your headline, or you would like to have a critique of what you've come up with, I would be very happy to do that. So send me a DM and I will take a look at it and give you my suggestions and see whether together we can find a way to improve it for you. But I'm sure that if you take into account some of these ideas that I've shared with you today, you'll come up with some fabulous ones. And even if you're really proud of it and you want to just share it with me, please do that too. I would be very happy to have a look. I always love to hear feedback from people where I've shared ideas and they put them into practice. It always gives me a really good buzz. So that would be really neat if you are prepared to do that too. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon. It has been lovely to be able to talk with you about LinkedIn headlines. I hope you found it useful, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.